Princess Beatrice has just been hit with a shocking truth, and it all started with a simple DNA test. For years, she stood quietly behind the royal curtain, loyal, polite, overlooked. But now, new revelations have left her in tears, and the palace in panic. Could everything she believed about her identity be a lie? Why was her father missing from her wedding photos? What secrets have been buried beneath the crown? You won't believe the twists waiting in this story. Stay with us as we uncover the truth that could change the royal family forever. The Princess in the Shadows. From the very beginning, Princess Beatrice was born into a world of royal opulence, but her life has never felt like a fairy tale. Born in 1988 as the fifth grandchild of Queen Elizabeth II, many assumed she'd be adored and celebrated. But behind palace walls, it was a very different story. As the world's cameras fixated on Prince William and Prince Harry, Beatrice quietly faded into the background. Even her younger sister, Princess Eugenie, often grabbed more headlines. Some tabloids cruelly labeled her the Invisible Royal, a title that stung, because while Beatrice kept a polite smile for the cameras, she was hiding emotional wounds few could see. In royal circles, silence can be both a duty and a shield. Beatrice's quiet nature wasn't just shyness, it was self-protection. She knew that every word, every expression could be twisted into a headline. But behind that calm exterior, insiders say she was deeply affected by the constant comparisons and rejections. One close friend once shared, "Beatrice always felt like she was standing in the wings of her own life." Was this silence born of insecurity? Or was there something deeper she was trying to process? Something no one dared to speak of out loud? As we peel back the layers of Beatrice's story, one question begins to surface. Could her long-hidden emotional battles be rooted in something far more shocking than royal pressure? And to find the answer, we must go back, all the way to where it started. A childhood built on scandal. Princess Beatrice's early years were anything but peaceful. At just 4 years old, her world was rocked when her parents' marriage, between Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, began to collapse in front of the entire world. The press had a field day. When a compromising photo of Fergie with an American businessman surfaced, the infamous toe-sucking scandal, it didn't just humiliate Sarah. It destroyed any sense of normalcy Beatrice might have had as a child. Suddenly, she wasn't just a princess, she was the daughter of a royal embarrassment. The tabloids were brutal, and while children were supposed to be off-limits, Beatrice's name was often dragged into the chaos. The emotional toll of growing up inside what many royal insiders still call the most dysfunctional wing of the monarchy left scars that would follow her well into adulthood. A former royal aide once admitted, "Beatrice didn't have a normal royal upbringing. She had a public lesson in survival." While most little girls were dreaming about tiaras and tea parties, Beatrice was watching her parents' dirty laundry being aired on front pages. The divorce, finalized in 1996, left the family fractured, and Beatrice emotionally adrift. This childhood instability may explain why she's always been so guarded, so careful, as if she feared the world would turn on her again. And perhaps she already had reason to. But the emotional storm didn't end there. There was another challenge coming, one that would forever shape how Beatrice saw herself. A learning battle, dyslexia and discovery. At just 7 years old, Beatrice was diagnosed with dyslexia, a moment that would quietly shape her identity. At the time, Dyslexia was often misunderstood, even mocked, and for a young royal expected to be perfect, it felt like a devastating label. "I remember feeling like something was wrong with me," Beatrice admitted years later. "But now I realize my brain works in a beautifully different way." In those early years, school became a battleground. Reading aloud in class was terrifying. Keeping up with peers felt impossible, and being in the public eye only made it worse. The shame was real, but in time, she began to understand her diagnosis, and slowly, she found strength in it. With the support of teachers who believed in her, Beatrice began to see dyslexia not as a weakness, but as a gift. She once described her learning style as magical, insisting it gave her a unique way of thinking. That perspective would become a core part of her adult identity. In speeches, she's often spoken about the importance of changing how we talk about dyslexia, especially for young kids. "We need to stop calling it a disability and start calling it a superpower," she once told a classroom of students. But even as she built confidence, questions lingered, ones that had little to do with school. Beatrice began to wonder about herself, about her place, and even about her roots. What exactly was she meant to be in this family? And what if her identity, the very thing she'd built her resilience around, wasn't the full truth? The next chapter reveals how the weight of appearance, expectations, and relentless judgment nearly crushed her. The weight of expectations and her own body. Royal life is hard enough, but when your body becomes the punchline, it's unbearable. Beatrice has been body-shamed since she was a teenager. Tabloids scrutinized every outfit, every pound gained or lost. She was labeled the unfashionable royal, with critics constantly mocking her clothes, her figure, and even her posture. The cruelty peaked at the 2011 royal wedding of William and Kate. Beatrice wore a dramatic fascinator designed by Philip Treacy, a bold choice that backfired. The hat was compared to a pretzel, a toilet seat, and worse. Online bullies went into overdrive, but few knew the damage it caused behind the scenes. Her sister Eugenie later told Vogue, "I remember Beatrice crying before an event because of something nasty someone wrote about her online." These weren't just passing comments, they were emotional blows. What made it worse was the pressure from home. Her mother, Sarah Ferguson, who'd faced years of fat-shaming herself, imposed strict diets on Beatrice when she was just 8 years old. It wasn't cruelty, it was fear. Fear that Beatrice would be torn apart like she was. That fear became reality. Beatrice's relationship with her body has been complicated ever since. And while she's grown more confident, the scars of those early years never truly faded. But perhaps all of this shame wasn't just about beauty. Perhaps the constant criticism masked a larger fear, that she didn't truly belong. And nowhere did that fear grow louder than in the shadow of her father, the ghost of Prince Andrew. For most of her life, Beatrice defended her father. She adored him. She trusted him. But that trust began to crack in 2019, when Prince Andrew's connection to Jeffrey Epstein became global news. The infamous BBC interview, where Andrew failed to explain his actions, sent shockwaves through the royal family. And Beatrice? She was reportedly in the room when that disastrous interview was filmed. Some say she urged him not to go through with it. Others say she was in tears afterward. Either way, her world was collapsing. Suddenly, the man she called Dad was now a symbol of scandal. Her wedding, originally meant to be a grand royal affair, was quietly scaled back. When the official photos were released, Prince Andrew was nowhere to be seen. A deliberate choice, and a painful one. Behind the scenes, Beatrice's loyalty was questioned. Was she too close to her father? Could she separate herself from the damage? One royal source confided, there were whispers. If Andrew could lie so easily to the world, what else might he be hiding? And then came the whispers of a DNA bombshell. A test, a question, a quiet panic. Could it be true? The next chapter opens the door to Beatrice's most heartbreaking discovery, and the truth that may have shattered everything she thought she knew. Romance and rejection. Love hasn't come easy for Princess Beatrice. Despite her royal title and elegant charm, her romantic life has been full of heartbreak, sacrifice, and silence. It all began with Dave Clark, a rising star in the tech world and a longtime executive at Virgin Galactic. Their relationship spanned over a decade, starting back in 2006. To many, they seemed perfect. Always side by side at charity events, weddings, and royal engagements. But behind the smiles, Beatrice was waiting for a ring. By 2016, it had been 10 years. She was reportedly desperate for clarity, giving Clark an ultimatum, marry me or walk away. The answer crushed her. He didn't propose. Instead, the relationship ended, and within months, he was engaged to someone else. By 2018, he was married. Beatrice didn't attend the wedding. Friends described her as completely blindsided. A close source said, it wasn't just the breakup, it was the speed, the humiliation of seeing him move on so fast. Heartbroken and humiliated, Beatrice pulled back from public life. And that's when Edoardo Mapelli-Mozzi entered the picture. A successful property developer with aristocratic roots and his own complicated past. He had a son from a previous relationship. He held an Italian title, Count, though it carried no official weight. But to Beatrice, he offered something else. Stability, nobility, a fresh start. The two went public in 2019. But their whirlwind romance and its royal approval had many asking, was this true love or a cover-up? Their story moved fast, perhaps too fast. And for Beatrice, love had become more than just emotion. It had become an escape, and maybe even a question of identity. And then came the wedding. A royal wedding. In the shadows. For most members of the British royal family, weddings are headline events. They're grand affairs, packed with months of planning, televised ceremonies, historical venues, processions through cheering crowds, and receptions hosted in palace gardens under glittering chandeliers. But Princess Beatrice's wedding was something entirely different. It was quiet, intimate, and deeply unusual. Held on July 17, 2020, Beatrice and Edoardo Mapelli-Mozzi tied the knot at the Royal Chapel of All Saints in Windsor. But the ceremony came during the height of COVID-19 lockdowns, meaning large gatherings were forbidden. While that explained the smaller guest list, what couldn't be explained was everything else. There were no carriages, no public appearance on palace steps, and no press announcement until after it had already happened. And while privacy during a pandemic might have justified some discretion, the level of secrecy raised eyebrows. Because for the first time in decades, a royal wedding came and went with no fanfare. But what truly caught the public's attention wasn't just who attended, it was who didn't appear in any official photos. Yes, Prince Andrew was reportedly present at the wedding, But unlike other royal fathers of the bride, he was nowhere to be seen in the official portraits. His absence was loud, deliberate, and deeply symbolic. One palace insider whispered, "He was there, but they made sure the world wouldn't see him." Why? At the time, Prince Andrew was still reeling from his now infamous BBC Newsnight interview and the fallout from his connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Public opinion had turned against him, and the palace was scrambling to contain the damage. Beatrice, loyal and heartbroken, was caught in the middle. Instead of walking down the aisle in front of the world, Beatrice entered the small chapel wearing a repurposed Norman Hartnell gown, borrowed from Queen Elizabeth II, a piece from Her Majesty's own wardrobe. On her head rested the historic Queen Mary fringe tiara, famously worn by the Queen herself on her wedding day in 1947. The symbolism was thick, almost too perfect. Was this truly a gesture of love from grandmother to granddaughter? Or was it a strategic decision, meant to redirect attention away from Prince Andrew and toward the Queen's enduring legacy? One royal aide confided, "Every detail was about distraction, not celebration." Even Prince Philip, then 99 and in declining health, was among the select few in attendance. He would pass away less than a year later. And Beatrice, though smiling, seemed unusually fragile. In several candid photos, she looks tense, clutching Eduardo's hand a little too tightly, her smile stretched thin. Observers couldn't help but wonder, was the wedding rushed? Or was it carefully staged, to keep a secret buried beneath the altar? Some speculated it was timed deliberately, before any further controversy about Prince Andrew exploded into public view. Others pointed to Beatrice herself, suggesting that the marriage was fast-tracked for personal, possibly legal reasons tied to succession or titles. And then came motherhood, because just a year later, Beatrice welcomed her first child. And suddenly, the stakes weren't just emotional, they were dynastic. Was this quiet wedding the beginning of a new chapter, or a cover for the royal family's most carefully guarded secret? What followed would make the whispers even louder, and bring Beatrice face to face with a truth she could no longer ignore. The story continues in The Motherhood Shift. The Motherhood Shift. Motherhood is often painted as a time of peace, but for Princess Beatrice, it marked a turning point. After marrying Eduardo, Beatrice became a stepmother to his son from a previous relationship. Then, in September 2021, she gave birth to her first child, a daughter named Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli Mozzi, a name meant to honor the Queen, but some believe it held deeper symbolism. At the time of her birth, Sienna was 11th in line to the throne, but following the Queen's death in 2022, she moved up to 10th. Suddenly, a child born in relative quiet had a royal future. Beatrice and her husband moved to the Cotswolds, seeking a quieter life away from the spotlight. But was it for peace or protection? Reports suggest that around this time, Beatrice began seeking clarity about her own identity. Sources close to her say she'd always had questions about where she came from, questions that had no easy answers. And in motherhood, those questions grew louder. She wanted to understand what her daughter was inheriting, one friend explained. Not just titles, but blood. Could that curiosity be what led to a medical checkup? And the DNA result that would send shockwaves through the palace? That moment was coming. But first, her sorrow spilled out in public, long before the world knew why. God's tears we didn't see. There are moments in royal life that require composure, but Princess Beatrice could no longer hold back. When Prince Philip died in 2021, she attended his service with visible grief. Walking beside her father, she was caught on camera clutching her program, searching for a tissue in her purse. Her eyes red and glassy, her lips trembling. It wasn't just the death of a grandfather. It felt deeper. At the Queen's Vigil in 2022, it happened again. Standing beside her cousins in Westminster Hall, Beatrice's shoulders shook. She struggled to keep still. Body language experts later said she looked overwhelmed, not just by grief, but anxiety. And many wondered, was she mourning her relatives or something more personal? By then, the whispers inside the palace had started. Stories of a DNA test, a result that shocked even her closest confidants. Beatrice had grown quieter than ever, attending fewer events, refusing to comment. Her world, the one she thought she understood, was cracking beneath her. One courtier revealed there was a look in her eyes we hadn't seen before. Not sadness, not loss, confusion, like she'd learned something she couldn't unlearn. And just as her emotions spilled into public view, so too did the pressure from inside the palace. Pressure from a very divided family. The cousin rift. Harry, Meghan, and the price of loyalty. As Beatrice navigated personal heartbreak, her family was breaking apart, again. And once more, she was caught in the middle. Her cousin Prince Harry, once the golden boy, had walked away from royal life, shaking the monarchy with interviews, books, and documentaries. Yet, through it all, Beatrice and her sister Eugenie remained close to him. While William and Charles tightened the circle, Beatrice stayed in contact, even attending events linked to Meghan and Harry. This didn't go unnoticed. Palace sources revealed she was seen as a leak risk, not because she was untrustworthy, but because her loyalty was split. And in royal life, loyalty is everything. They stopped telling her things, one insider said. There was fear she'd tell Harry, and if she did, it might end up in his next book. As tensions rose, so did speculation. Was Beatrice still part of the inner circle, or quietly frozen out? And more importantly, could her connection to Harry have been driven by a shared experience of not fully belonging? This emotional tug-of-war would reach its climax when the truth came crashing down in private, and the DNA results revealed the secret she'd feared all her life. The royal outcast. For years, Princess Beatrice had quietly played the role expected of her. Dutiful daughter, loyal cousin, charitable face. She showed up, she smiled, she served, but inside the palace, she was never truly welcomed into the core. Unlike William, Harry, or even Kate, Beatrice was never given full-time royal duties. Despite her extensive charity work, international engagements, and obvious willingness to help, she remained on the sidelines, a spare to the spare, always waiting for an invitation that never came. "I want to serve," she reportedly told a family aide, "but I don't know if they want me to." The pain of being sidelined became more visible in recent years. As working royals dropped out, Harry, Meghan, even Prince Andrew, insiders thought Beatrice would finally be called upon. She wasn't, not even when the palace faced a staffing crisis. She was there, but ignored. One source close to the family claimed Beatrice feels like she's been erased, like they've drawn a circle and left her out of it. Why would the crown keep her at arm's length? Some say it was guilt. Others say it was fear. And a few whisper that palace officials had already seen something they couldn't explain. Something in her lineage that didn't add up. When quiet rumors turned into hard truths, the cold shoulder became even colder. Could it be that her distance from official duties wasn't personal, but strategic? Because once the truth was confirmed that her DNA didn't match what it should, the palace couldn't risk having her too close. And then, the secret that had been tightly held for years was about to break. The DNA test that shook the crown. What began as a routine medical screening led to the royal family's most private crisis in decades. Sources suggest that during a health check, Princess Beatrice submitted a DNA sample, a standard procedure. But the results triggered immediate internal alarms. Whispers inside royal circles hinted at a shocking inconsistency. Beatrice's paternity didn't match. Specifically, her DNA profile didn't align with Prince Andrew's lineage. The palace immediately went into crisis mode. According to one senior source, there were meetings, legal advice, damage control plans, and silence, absolute silence. The implications were seismic. If Andrew wasn't Beatrice's biological father, it wasn't just a personal issue. It was a constitutional one. Her royal status, her position in the line of succession, even her daughter's place, all of it now hung in limbo. And there was another layer. Sarah Ferguson had long been rumored to have had other relationships during her marriage to Andrew. One name kept coming up: John Bryan, the American financier famously involved in the toe-sucking scandal. Could he be the real father? No official confirmation has been made, and likely never will be. But Beatrice was said to be devastated, not angry, not embarrassed, just shattered. She didn't want to lose her identity, a friend confided, and that's exactly what happened. In one letter, in one test result, she lost who she thought she was. Behind closed doors, Beatrice reportedly wept for hours. Not just for herself, but for her daughter. Because now, everything had changed. But what happens when a royal doesn't know if she's even royal at all? What happens now? The question echoing through Buckingham Palace isn't just about Beatrice's past, it's about her future. If Princess Beatrice is not Prince Andrew's biological daughter, what does that mean for her royal status? Her position in the line of succession? More importantly, what does it mean for Sienna, her daughter, currently 10th in line to the throne? The palace has remained publicly silent. No statement, no acknowledgement. But behind the scenes, the royal family is bracing. Because once a secret like this exists, it's only a matter of time before it leaks. Some insiders believe she may voluntarily step back from royal life, citing personal reasons. Others say King Charles has already started quietly restructuring royal titles to protect the institution. But one thing is certain: Beatrice's heart is broken. She's not angry at her mother, a friend shared. She just feels betrayed by fate. Even her relationship with Prince William has grown colder. While Eugenie maintains ties with Prince Harry, Beatrice now stands alone between two worlds, one she was born into and one that may have never truly belonged to her. There are also questions about her daughter's future. Will Sienna lose her place in the succession? Will her last name be enough to keep her in the royal fold? And as Beatrice grapples with this identity crisis, the emotional toll is mounting. "I don't know who I am anymore," she reportedly confided to a friend. Is the crown protecting its image or burying a scandal? Only time will tell if the truth will ever be publicly acknowledged. But for now, one thing is clear: the fairy tale is over. And Princess Beatrice, once a royal shadow, now stands at the center of a storm that could redefine everything. So, was Princess Beatrice's entire royal life built on a secret? From hidden tears to DNA bombshells, the truth is finally coming out. What do you think the palace is still hiding? Let us know below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a royal twist.